Welcome, everybody, to the Resistance Broadcast. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is Thursday, September 3rd. I cannot believe summer is already almost over, but here we are, after what would have been Star Wars Celebration, talking with one of our favorite people who we hung out with at Celebration, who takes part in Celebration, like the podcast stage and stuff like that. James and Lacey with me as always, and joining us, Mark Newbold from Fantha Tracks, also contributing to StarWars.com, Star Wars Insider, and back in the Resistance Bath with us, Mark Newbold. What's up, Mark?
I'm glad to be back in the Bath. It's Ace here.
Yes.
How are you?
Good, man. Good. Now, we know it's pretty late over by you, so what are you sipping on to keep yourself awake with us here in the base?
Nice hot cup of PG Tips tea in Rancho Obi-Wan mug, so that's my jam today.
Very
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
Right on. James and Lacey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, not doing too bad. Got my Death Watch on right now.
Nice. Yeah,
Right?
I gotta rep my Make Solo 2 Happen shirt. We're gonna keep that going for as long as we can. So, Mark, what's going on in the world of Fantha Tracks? What are you guys up to? And if you want to give our audience a bit of what you got going on in the world of Galaxy Far, Far Away from your end.
It's busy as ever. There's always stuff going on. We were just involved in a show over here called Empire 40, so that was a lot of fun. So me and Mark, my co-host on Making Tracks, were involved with that. We did some interviews and a couple of bits and bobs there. Yeah, it's obviously missing the not happened yet, but will in 2 years' time celebration.
Right.
It kind of happened virtually in my head, and it was really cool. And I met everyone. It was brilliant. But one day, and yeah, no, just busy as always. I mean, even when there's no Star Wars news, we seem to find stuff to talk about. So when there is Star Wars news, it's a mad scramble. I'm sure it's the same for you guys. But yeah, it's going good.
Yeah.
The site's still, 3 years in October now. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it's 3 years.
Congrats. And you guys just had a 50th episode of Making Tracks, right?
Yeah.
Congrats,
50th
man.
studio episode. Thank you. Yeah. So, that's gone by in a heartbeat. So, yeah, it's good fun. I mean, I've been very fortunate. Dave was my co-host for the first 25 episodes, and Mark's been my co-host for the last 25. And then Dave came back for the 50th, so which was really good fun. So
wait, is it going back to Dave now for the next 25? Or you guys?
I'm binning them both off and getting somebody else. I'm just not.
Just 25 segments. Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Very cool. So you ready to chat about some Star Wars?
I think so.
All right. James, why don't we fire up Will of the Force? You know why, James?
Because it is forward adult.
Close. It's back, baby! What's up, man?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
All right, this week, Will of the Force, we're doing something a little bit different. We have 3 Resistance Officer Patreon questions. So we're going to kick it off with one of those right away. Commander Christian Morales, he wants to know, will we get a new animated series based on the High Republic era once the era launches on publishing? Mark, I'm starting with you on this one. What do you think about High Republic, and do you think we could make a animated show out of it?
From what I understand, they're pitching it purely at the moment as a literature thing. But that being said, if it's Disney, isn't it? And they're a money-making business. So if High Republic launches in January 5th, I think. Although it should be, should be in a couple of days, really, all things being equal. But
Yeah.
if it excuse me, if it launches and it's a hit and people dig it and the comics sell and everything rolls off the back of it, as it hopefully will. And it's got that man, Kevin Scott, involved, who seems to have the golden touch for Star Wars at the moment. It wouldn't surprise me one iota if this becomes a new era beyond the literature thing and does become an animated thing. Honestly, I think at the moment, because the sequel trilogy era for now, I think has got a cap in it for the time being. Obviously, we've got all of our other eras. We can get your teeth into a new era of Star Wars and do something a bit special. Yeah. What a long-winded answer to a really short answer. Yes, I think there could be and possibly should be, but watch this space.
Well, welcome to Will of the Force, because this is the segment where we give really long-winded answers to what should be short yes and no.
Yeah.
Lacey, you're up next. What do you think? Do you think they're going to do an animated series for High Republic?
I think for the time being, they will not. I think that High Republic is a book publishing event, and that's how it's going to stay for now.
All right. John, yes or no? Tie break them real quick.
So my whole theory had been that I thought the Game of Thrones guys were doing films in conjunction with this, and this was going to be supplemental to their films. I don't have evidence of that. That's just a theory of mine. So I'm going to stick by that road and say, because of that, no, for the time being. And I'm not sure if Star Wars has the ability to reverse engineer itself from literature outward as opposed to doing movie and trickle down. But like Mark said, if they do knock it out of the park and find their audience and find something there that has more buzz to it that makes people want to see those characters realized in different mediums, then it's possible. But my initial instinct, based on my crazy theory, is no.
It's interesting you guys say that, because I'm going to say yes for reasons that you two normally provide, which is, I think you're right. I think there was supposed to be like a movie tie-in, and it was supposed to trickle down from that. So there probably were plans that down the line we were going to do the animated stuff, and that's probably still an option, especially now since it's probably lacking. The animated show would boost it up. Lacey, you've said often too that, like they brought in Doug Chang. They brought in Doug Chang to do the covers.
That's it.
I think they wanted a whole world and a style and all sorts of things, and they built it all out. And the point was not just to be written down in words and text and black and white alone. So I'm going to go yes. They are going to do an animated show at some point.
So last time we did something like this with a guest, I feel like we were all like saying the same answer. So I like that we're split already out of the gate. So
I've caused dissension in the ranks, and I kind of feel good about that.
that's okay. Yeah, let's go.
All right, the next question is Baby Yoda. You may have heard of him, aka the child, aka Tiny, as we like to call him. The Mando here on TRB and the Mando fan, will his name eventually, when they come out with whatever the child's name is it going to start with a Y? Because we got Yoda, we got Yaddle. John, I'm going to you first. You're laughing. What do you think? Starting with a Y?
I think yes, just because Star Wars is such a small galaxy, and George he honored them and blessed them with using the species again, and they're not going to go too far off of the tradition of the characters in a sense. So I think it's going to be something with a Y. I just have that feeling. Now, whether they have a whole planet of these things and they have all these different names with a Y, I don't know, but I think for this little guy, they're going to stick with it.
All right, Lacey, what do you think? Starting with a Y?
This is a super funny question, because it's something that in the past year I didn't even consider. Like, you just think about it, and the question's always, is he related to Yoda and Yaddle? How does this work into it? But I didn't even think about the names being both starting with Y until right now. I was today years old. I think they will. I think it's an easy way to relate him to the species without it being related to Yoda. And it would be super funny. But I can't help but remember, by the way, when The Mandalorian came out, how kind of a little bit annoyed we were when we were like, it's not Yoda. It's not Yoda. Stop calling it Yoda. And then you just had to give in after a while. You were like, oh, whatever.
I almost fear them actually now naming it,
Baby Yoda.
Anything.
All right, Mark, what do you think? Are you burning down the yes train right now?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I love the fact that you call him Tiny. I just keep thinking that line from Star Trek 3, don't call me Tiny.
Yeah. We got that from This Is Not Yoda.
Yeah.
TIN.
No, I like that. Because, I get told off all the time because I write Baby Yoda on the site all the time because I just think it's cute.
Sure.
People
Yeah.
say,
Yeah,
oh, it's the child. Well, no, we only call him the child.
The child didn't go viral hashtag. It was Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
So use the Baby Yoda.
There's not a guy at Burbank with a hashtag going child's that's going to get everyone, but Baby Yoda, yeah.
Right.
Baby Yoda, and all that stuff, isn't it? Having it with a Y, I think, I like. It's like Warwick Davis. If he plays a character that's name doesn't begin with W, he must, veins must bulge and stuff. So calling him baby, I don't know. I don't know what it would be, but it kind of makes sense. Yes. There you go.
All right.
Yes. Well, the one thing I know is that I'm answering this question with a Y.
Ooh.
And that's a yes.
There it
for
is.
me.
Yeah. All right, 4 for 4. So,
I think all the John, you knock on wood, you spoke too soon.
Oh.
Now we're all agreeing.
Yeah.
No, I think everything that you guys said too about the tradition, and it's just an easy thing. And I think even if they think it's weird, like, so what every one of their species is thing. Number one, it's Star Wars, so you could write that in.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, you could also just get away with being like, it's circumstance, whatever, happenstance. That the ones that we know about happen to be named with Y.
It could be a silent
Plus,
Y.
I don't plan them on bringing in a bunch of this species in the future. So
Yeah. It could be a silent Y, couldn't it?
The silent Y.
yeah,
Why not? I mean,
Right.
Lando with a silent Y could be,
Yeah.
I'm really trying to help
I'm
Lucas.
trying to think of any word that has a silent Y. I'm sure there are some.
No, I can't think of one.
There's some that start with Y that have a V sound, doesn't it? Is that a thing?
I'm sure there's a
Possibly.
chiss like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say,
All
though,
right.
you know those quizzes where you do Star Wars names and it like tells you what your Star Wars name is?
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's like your first name backwards. So mine would be Yekel.
Oh, that's good.
Ooh.
Watch it be Yekel.
Yeah.
Watch the first episode of the show, like, to get it out of the way. They're like, he just in the ship, and he's like, hey, Yekel, give me that silver knob that you took from the shifter.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
My
It's like,
moment has come.
I'm writing this down. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I'm writing
Sheev,
down
but
12
spelled with a
minutes.
silent Y.
This
Yeah.
episode. Yeah.
Sheev with a silent Y. All right.
No more Sheev. No more.
Silent Y Palpatine. All right, we're doing another Patreon Resistance Officer question. This one's coming from Major Darth Rosie. He wants to know, will the World Between Worlds ever be included in live action? If so, how long do you think it will take for them to include it in, say, like a Disney Plus television show or movie or something like that? Lacey, you're starting us off on this one. The World Between Worlds. What do you think?
I was just shaking my head because I feel like this is one of those things that's just always a hot topic as of December. I never heard about this except that episode of Rebels until December. But no, they will not. I think it's staying in animation. I feel like we've talked about this before.
Oh, we probably have, but you know,
Yeah.
things change with how often they're doing Disney Plus series now, and you know who they
Yeah.
announce. Like maybe I don't know. Like maybe they bring in.
Are you
a
answering
Disney
now?
Plus? There's rumors of a Disney Plus with Ezra or something. No, I don't know. I'm trying to justify why we would answer the question again. Actually, next up on answering this one is going to be Mark. What do you think?
I'm going to say no as well, because I think currently, isn't there like 56 different Star Wars TV shows now either being filmed or in development at Disney Plus?
I think around
Yekel,
there. Yeah.
Star Wars stories.
Exactly.
68.
58 with the silent Y, that's the one. I think the World Between Worlds was great in Rebels. It completely suited that episode and made all the things in that scenario fit. But it just worries me that if it's used in the wrong place or used too often, it could become almost there is an element of it that almost feels like time travel, and I don't think time travel. And I don't think time travel has any place in Star Wars. It is as a major plot point. I'm sure there's elements that could, you know, if you want to manipulate things, but I think once you start going down that path, then all of a sudden it's Back to the Future 2, isn't it? And everything unravels.
Oh.
Not that I'm knocking Back to the Future 2 is a great film, but you know, where's my hoverboard? So you know, so I would, you know, when Luke talks about, you know, time travel and altering time and speeding up the highways and all that stuff, it's as much sci-fi to me anyway. It's as much science fiction to him as it is to us. You know, it's not a thing that happens in the Star Wars galaxy. It worries me that if they bring that into it, then everything, you can just wipe anything out that you want. You know, any new writer coming in can go, I didn't like that, I'm going to bin it off. So
yeah, it's like a writing tool that they're like, let me just erase this.
Yeah,
Mark's making me picture Sheev Palpatine with a sports almanac now.
and those pump up trainers. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
There's young Sheev and old Sheev, and he keeps calling him a knucklehead. And
Yeah, bopping him on the head. Yeah.
Palpatine.
Sound like a damn fool.
John, what is your opinion on World Between Worlds showing up Disney Plus movie? Something
You guys know me. I didn't like it to begin with. Not because of itself in its bubble, but because of what it created after the fact, where fans latch onto it as sort of an out to change things they don't like in canon. And like Lacey said, it happened recently with Ben Solo. People think he's hanging out there somewhere. They reinterpreted what the World Between Worlds is. They think it's like a what do you call that? Purgatory now. So it's very strange to me, and it's like that. Great line from Spider-Man, with great power becomes great responsibility, and having this as a vessel in Star Wars is detrimental to me, like Mark said, because it's dangerous. You can really change stories and manipulate things, and I feel like the further we get away down the line from George Lucas, we need to make sure we still keep one arm on the tree, so Star Wars doesn't get too wild and too crazy that we have to hit that reset Thanos snap button and redo canon again. So I hope not. I'll put it that way to end my long-winded answer, as Mark said.
I too am gonna say no on this one. But the thing is that, in some ways, Star Wars will revisit ideas without actually revisiting that specific thing. So, like the World Between Worlds, I think that will always be like a Rebels thing, and they'll probably never really visit it. Maybe like in a book or a reference in a comic or something like that. But that's more like a nod to the series rather than like we want to bring it back in. But I always think like some sort of exploratory, use of the Force is always possible in these types of methods, because before World of the Worlds, any type of possibility, like, do you think a character will somehow use the Force to travel back in time and pull Ahsoka out of a battle? Like, it would just be unthinkable, but they did it and it worked. So I feel like some other person along the lines could explore the Force in that method, especially since even in live action, we just did the Empire Strikes Back commentary. And even in that movie, we have Luke Skywalker saying, oh my gosh, Han and Leia, they're being tortured, they're in pain. And then like that hasn't happened yet. Darth Vader does that like way later in the movie. So like the Force is telling people things out of time. So it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting sometimes. And that's something that's live action and it's already kind of happened, like some sort of like differential time plane type of thing via the Force. So I think no to your answer, to just be specific and to the point. World Between Worlds, not happening. Next question is one that the Resistance broadcast is very familiar with. Mark, you're going first on this one. Will Alden Ehrenreich return in a series centered around Han and Chewie on Disney Plus? # make Solo 2 happen, right?
That's a leading question.
You don't say. Where did you get that from?
No idea. But peripheral vision shows me a T-shirt somewhere. I don't think there'll be a Han Solo-led TV series, but I think there very likely could be a TV series in that era where Han and Lando, Kira, and a whole bunch of characters could appear in. So in the same way, we talk about it a lot on Making Tracks, in the same way that Cassian is the focal character of that TV series, but I think personally it's more about the era, that sort of lead up to Rogue One, building of the rebellion, pulling in the cells and all that sort of stuff, and he's the focal character leading you through it. That works with that character because of his association with everything else that's going on around it, whereas Han Solo and Chewie are kind of outliers a little bit. They're sort of on their own, doing their own thing. I don't think a series focusing specifically on them, I think a film would work great, but I think a TV series focusing on them might not. But having them in and around action and things that are happening in that sort of part of the galaxy, that sort of layer of society, if you like, would work really well. So I do think you'll see him again, but I don't think it'll be as a specific Han or Han and Chewie or Millennium Falcon based TV series. So I don't know if that's a yes or a no with a silent Y, but it's an answer.
So I feel like our answers are going to go pretty quick. So let me do a quick follow-up with you too. Like, Do you think it's like another character from Solo taking the lead then? Like, I'll throw it out there, like Lando. Like, do you think it's a Lando-led series with Han Solo side character showing up?
I think it's more, personally, and I really haven't heard anything about it, I think it'd be more likely to be more based on Crimson Dawn than anything, because then you've got the opportunity to, like I say, everybody wants to know what happened next with Kira. You know, and obviously they brought Maul into it, which was a wonderful tease, and there's all that lead up to, you know, those final scenes in Rebels, so you've got a nice defined chunk of time to fill in there as well. I think it would be more based on that than a single specific character, and also because all the actors, the lead actors involved are, you know, they can all turn up in movies, they've all got other stuff going on, you've got the opportunity then to bring them in, you know, staggered, and not necessarily have them in everything. That being said, we've got Ewan McGregor coming up pretty soon on the Obi-Wan series, and he's certainly a big screen guy. So who knows? But I think it's more likely to be sort of based on that part of the galaxy. You know, the Crimson Dawn would be great to investigate. I think most people would enjoy seeing that get fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah, I got that. All right, John, now it's time for your answer. What do you think? Alden Ehrenreich returning as Han Solo in Disney+.
Well, I have to stick to my guns with the Make Solo 2 Happen thing and say yes. Otherwise, it'll be called...
Imagine if you were like, no.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll be called a fraud, right? But having said that, you know, we've talked about this on the podcast a few times. You know, I would be completely satisfied with that compromise that Mark suggests, where Han does show up and it's more than a cameo, where we do get to see more of him as the jaded Han that he becomes at the end of Solo when everybody burns him, and we get to see him and Han maybe work for Chewie and do some things to get entangled into the web of what's going on with these crime syndicates. So I'm still hoping, yes, that we see the adventures of Han Solo, kind of like a young Indiana Jones series, with Alden and Jonas, and you get Jabba, you get Boba Fett in there, and sprinkle everyone in. But I'll be cool as long as we get both them back in the saddle, and it's more than was that Han Solo who just walked by? You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying yes, but I'm willing to compromise.
Yep. All right, Lacey, what do you think?
I think Alden will return as Han to a series on Disney+. I don't know if it's his own series, like we've discussed so many times on the show, but I think it's just a missed opportunity for Lucasfilm and Disney not to do it, seeing as the fans want it. We're wearing shirts. But also because it's just a really cool story that they could tell. Like Mark said with Crimson Dawn and everything, I think it's just there to be told, and I don't know what they're waiting for. So yeah, I think they definitely will, but I really like what Mark was saying, where it could be multiple characters kind of interlaced with each other, and kind of like the Solo universe type of different storylines intersecting and how they relate to each other within this bigger story that's being told. But not just in the background as, hey, I'm Han in the back of this bar
one
drinking
episode
something.
cameo.
The back of a guy's head, and they're like, yeah, that's Han Solo.
Yeah.
He's wearing a vest. We swear it's Han Solo.
Yeah. See the
He calls
thing?
everyone
Yeah.
kid. It's definitely Han Solo.
Yeah, right. It turns around and it's Toro Calican from Mando, and I'm like, no!
That is the ultimate nightmare, right? That
You know
is
it's
my
Han because
nightmare.
he's got his boots on the table.
Right. It's like, no!
I also am gonna say yes to this. I think what's the most interesting thing to think about this is that when we do the big Make Solo 2 Happen pushes, one of the top answers we get is like, I don't know about that. I'd rather have a TV series. So people do lean towards the fact that they think it would be better as a TV series. The other side of this too is that I feel in some ways that Solo is kind of like Tron. Solo is to Lucasfilm as Tron is to Disney, where Tron, like they did Tron Legacy, they brought it back, they spent all this money, and they were like, people are going to lose their minds. This is an amazing film. It's a new franchise for us. We're going to spawn this off into so many other things. And then it was just kind of like, meh, it did okay. It made its money back, and people were just kind of all right with it. And I think that Disney is just still holding on to Tron so much, they just love it, that they're given some time, they're going to try to go at it again.
Yet they made rides, Millennium Falcon ride,
yeah, they made the rides,
also the Tron ride.
And then they're like, we're bringing the ride over to the States, and then we're doing it. We're finally gonna do it. It's been kicking around for years. We're doing that Tron 3 script. We got Jared Leto. He's been involved for a long time. Yeah. But we signed him on, and he's agreed. So, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to compare that to something else. But the point is that I think I've been a big Tron fan for a long time, and I'm excited to see that they're finally going through with it because I know they want to. And I know the people at Lucasfilm really have a lot of pride in Solo, and they're really happy with how how it turned out. It's just a little bit of a bummer that it didn't make $1 billion. Yeah. So that's where I'm standing on it. And also, last question though,
James. I mean, the obvious thing that everyone keeps bringing up is like, where does Chewbacca fit in future Star Wars right now? If they're not bringing Rey and all them back, like, where is he going to be? Like, you don't not use Chewbacca in Star Wars. And Jonas is there just like, he doesn't make a lot of money to play Chewie. He wants to come back and do it. Like, give people their Chewbacca. And how else do you do it besides Han and Chewie back? But yeah.
It is a little bummer that Chewbacca is not like 800 years old, because then they could have done the High Republic stuff.
Yeah.
He could have been around then too.
Yeah.
All right. Last question is actually coming from Commander Adamodal. This is another Resistance officer question, so thanks for the support. He wants to know, will The Mandalorian go the way as of so many other Star Wars projects before it and eventually divide fans? Lacey, season 1 was great. Is season 2 going to be the jump the shark season?
I really honestly hope not. And I'm optimistic that everyone will continue to like Mandalorian. However, in the past probably like 4 months, I don't know if it's that people have been rewatching it or what, I've seen a lot of, yeah, it's okay. It wasn't that great. And I'm like, it's happening. I'm getting really nervous. So I'm going to be positive and say it will not divide fans. People will continue to like it. They like Baby Yoda. They like The Mandalorian. They like everything else about it. They'll continue to like it.
All right, John, what do you think?
I agree with the answer that it will not divide fans, because I feel like The Mandalorian scratches an itch for every type of fan. You have your OG fans who cognitively, for whatever reason, as incorrect as it is, separate the Rogue One and The Mandalorian from Disney Lucasfilm. They think Kathleen Kennedy has nothing to do with these two projects. So the old grumpy menacing guys are cool with this show, because they're like, oh, this is George Lucas Star Wars. I can tell. Dave Filoni, blah, blah, blah. Then you have the new fans who are like, Baby Yoda, we love all these new characters. This is awesome. Disney Plus, I'm all in. So I feel like everyone's kind of united around this show. And also, if you look at like Rebels and Clone Wars, how those shows ended, I don't think they divided fans, and that's all Dave Filoni. His hands are in the clay on this one too. I feel like the only thing with Star Wars that really divided fans was the attachment to Luke Skywalker and that legacy of the 40 years and what they thought that story would be. And I think that was the biggest part of it. And then, you can add the grandchildren and Ben Solo and that stuff in there too. You take that away, and I think Star Wars isn't as divisive as you think when you look at all the other types of stories. So I'm going to lean on no, and that's a hope and a prayer. Throwing the ball to the end zone. Hopefully someone catches it.
I actually think that it probably will eventually, and I feel like season 2 is going to have a little bit of a thing. And I think the reason I'm coming from that is there's the always ever-flowing no expectations versus expectations.
Yeah.
And, when you look at something like The Mandalorian Season 1, no expectations. People are like, I don't know what to expect from that show. I don't even know what a Mandalorian is. So the thing is that I think people went into it, low expectations, they really like it. And now that they really like it, they're going to go into that season 2 thinking that this thing is just going to like completely blow their minds because it's going to have Ahsoka in it and Ezra and Thrawn and Sabine and Kanan's coming back from the world between worlds and like, you know, like everything's going to happen in that show and it's inevitably going to like disappoint. And I don't think anybody here in this conversation particularly is not going to like it because it's Star Wars and we just kind of like we learn the stories and we adapt to the stories and things like that. But I do think that they're, you know, I think that even though Rogue One had a big movie, I think Cassian Andor still has like low expectations. People are going to be like, I don't know what that really is, but whatever. And it'll turn out to be pretty good. I'm scared about Obi-Wan. I'm actually scared that people are going to be like, this is my favorite character in Star Wars and you know, they better do this right because you only are going to get the one chance at it and all this other stuff. So lots of hype there. But Mark, I want to go back to Mandalorian season 2. Do you think this is going to divide fans?
It shouldn't, but it will. We've sort of stumbled into a period of fandom that is so contrary upon itself that it doesn't know whether it's coming or going because. If you spend so long wishing for something, then it arrives. If it isn't exactly what you expect, you just said headcanon. If it isn't exactly what I demand it to be in my head on the screen, ticking every possible plot box it could, and to complete satisfaction, then burn it all to the ground. It's kind of you look left and look right, and it's where's the love for it anymore? It's just chewing it over and getting angry about it. And I think season 1, you guys all said it, as season 1 came out of left field. Nobody expected it to be what it was because nobody knew what it was going to be. Nobody knew what the tone was. You know, nobody heard a beat of the music and that set the tone. And then Stagecraft has blown everyone's minds and that's been amazing. And we've learned more about that. And, you know, you learn very openly through Disney Gallery how they brought the characters together, how they threw all the Easter eggs and everything else in lovingly. You know, it's the most amazing souffle ever made, you know, of Star Wars. And then, like you say, you go to season 2, and now the expectation levels for season 1 were like here because it's Star Wars and it's Disney and spend a lot of money on it. It should be good, but now it's like here. Well, that's not attainable. That's trying to make a film that's going to be as good as Empire Strikes Back sort of level. No film's never going to reach that, you know, not because it couldn't be, not because it isn't. It's just an unattainable goal. It's what the Phantom Menace was up against. And we look back at that film far more fondly now, given the distance of time, and it's a far better film than it ever got credit for. I think season 2 of Mando is going to sadly fall into that trap of people who are going to be expecting Citizen Kane. It's not meant to be Citizen Kane, you know what I mean?
Oh, Citizen Kane, I can't get away from it.
That's what they do. They're like, Mandalorian season 2, episode 1, premiering this day, and then they just link you to Citizen Kane. Like you start it and it just plays that movie.
Why not? But yeah, it's the unattainable expectation, isn't it? I just think whatever you get, some subsection of fandom was like, well, it didn't do this, or it didn't show that, or that character wasn't in it, or whatever. Pick your poison, whatever. If it isn't in there, the whole thing's ruined. And we are, I say we as a collective, because we're all Star Wars fans. Whatever your choice, we're such a vocal fandom within our bubble of specifically social media, that all those thoughts will be out there and everybody will be reading and commenting on it. And it'll just, I don't know what the people at Lucasfilm must think when all these things come out, because they know they're putting a quality product out there, and then they must just sit there sometimes wringing their hands, go, oh God, another fire, Yeah. So, but yeah.
Oh God.
It's weird. Like in the music industry, they call it the dreaded sophomore album, because it's like you can put out a first album, you can have a hit, but everybody has all eyes on that second record. If that second record isn't good, then your career's just done, because nobody's going to come back for the third record. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Weezer did it, but
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Did they have a terrible second record?
Well, a lot of people like it, like cult status, Pinkerton.
Yeah.
But after the blue record, people are like, I wanted more of that. Just like what Mark said, like to a T.
Yeah.
All
right, that's it for Will of the Force, guys. John actually came up with a really cool discussion to have with Mark specifically. So let's get it started. John, what do you got?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
The future of Star Wars. Last time Mark was with us, we discussed Star Wars saying goodbye to our legacy actors and characters. And a month or so ago on the podcast, we talked about the current state of Star Wars. And now, with Mark back, perhaps we can create balance in that force and look ahead to the future, to the horizon, and take our minds off of where we are and what we're doing. So, just looking ahead, knowing what we have going on, Disney Plus really carrying the luggage until they get the new set of films going. 2023, that got bumped a year. I'm going to start off with a positive note in that I'm really excited at the possibilities of things that Disney wouldn't greenlight potentially being greenlit now that the technology is there to lower budgets and take us to locations that you would have to uproot and move film crews to film things like Solo, A Star Wars Story, one of my favorite Star Wars movies at this point. They had to go to the mountains of Italy. They went to Fuerteventura. They went to all these places, probably multiple times because of how many times they filmed, these certain parts of the movie. The budget went upwards of $275 million. That can really be shrunken down, and maybe it gives you hope that you can get more Solo stories, and not just that, but other types of Star Wars storytelling that Disney may be like, I don't know about that, but dollars speak volumes, and when you have to use less of them, it's enticing for shareholders and CEOs. So I'm going to start there and just say I'm excited that the technology is continuing. Star Wars is once again leading the charge in this type of thing. So Mark, what are you thinking about the future of Star Wars? Is the technology widening the net? Do you agree with me there? And anything else you want to talk about the future of Star Wars, say the next 10 or 15 years that you're maybe speculating on or projecting on or hoping about?
I think you're absolutely right. It is a topic we talk about a lot on Making Tracks, about stagecraft and the opportunities that it gives, Lucasfilm and Disney. And also, as it develops, we had Hal Hickel on the show for a couple of episodes, and he obviously couldn't talk a huge amount about season 2, but what he could say was, it's going to blow your minds, because what you saw in season 1 was all the background, the sets and stuff. But obviously now there's the opportunity to go a bit deeper with it and have more sort of characters in the distance and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, let's say I'm a Lucasfilm, say bean counter, accountant. I'm the numbers guy. I'm there. Somebody said, well, here's your budget for a Star Wars film. Here's your budget. Here's your 200 million or whatever it might be.
That guy's listening. He's like, that's me. I'm
exactly. And you're sitting there with your numbers and you're trying to work it all out and you're doing your location scouting, the old Robert Watch thing, flying around the globe, trying to find cool places to film your movie. And you budget it and you get your actors and la-da-da, it's all there on paper. And then somebody comes along and says, well, you don't need to go to Jordan and you don't need to go to, like, say, Fuerteventura,
right,
but you don't need to go to anywhere, wherever. We can do this in the volume. It's what George wanted to do at the Grady Ranch sort of 10, 12 years ago. And I still think one of those world between worlds moments of what if you could step back and make that happen, although that whole story is worth it for sort of the social housing aspect of it, but that's another story. But, the whole thought of, taking the cast and crew to a monster room and throwing up all these, things on the wall and filming it there. And okay, I would imagine, again, a lot of crew, a lot of people who work on locations, they're going to miss out in the short term whilst the technology spreads itself, because
that's a good point.
At the moment, Lucasfilm seems to be and Disney are the company that have got that technology.
Right.
But it is an emerging tech. Pretty soon, there's going to be other companies that do things that are either advances on or similar to, and that spreads around the world. So all of a sudden, you don't have location filming so much. You do have volumes dotted around the globe. They'll stick one at the Fox Studios on the Gold Coast. They'll stick one at Pinewood. They'll be all over the place.
Right.
And so those crews that would go out and film don't need to. They just need to get stage time in a volume. It'll be like trying to get your toys made in the factories in the Far East, because the demand is so crazy. It's difficult to get slots. It could be a bit like that. But yeah, I think the opportunities, to your point, cost is such a key thing when you've got shareholders, on your quarterly calls. It's a massive responsibility.
Right.
It's going to completely change the face of not just television, but cinema as well. But then that's a broader conversation. The line between the two is so thin now; it's barely worth considering the difference. I think film and television is just one thing now. It's just the media you watch it.
It'll be everybody filming in these volume things, and Tom Cruise is like on Mars, like jumping off of the planet.
Flies himself there. Yeah.
Practical stunts, okay? Come on.
Yeah.
And films in volume on Mars. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. I am interested to see like when the volume breaks out of The Mandalorian. Like, I imagine first we'll hear that there's other Disney properties, whether they're Disney Plus shows or other Disney entities of some sort, like Disney Channel original movies, or something like that, that utilize this tech. And then you'll start to see it elsewhere, like, I don't know, some other like HBO show is actually going to be using that same technology or something. You'll start to see it break out. But I mean, those are all really good points on as far as like that thing. I think, John, you were saying just a couple weeks ago, you think that the movies will still, like, theaters might change what is shown in all that stuff, and your big blockbusters are probably still going to go to the location because they're only going to be made by Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be like, see, this is the difference between 70 millimeter and he is only ever gonna shoot on film, so you're probably gonna still need to go to those locations for those big things. But I think for everything else, especially in Star Wars, like they can be like, just throw up Starfield on the back of there, and we got a new show. Yeah, I definitely think that that's a very strong possibility. I don't know.
Lacey, what do you think?
I don't know where to
You
go.
have to think Adam Sandler's a little nervous because we all know that he picks locations based on where he wants to vacation. So he's probably like, oh no. And Netflix is like, that's right. We're not paying for your vacations anymore. That's where his movies are, is that he's like, I've always wanted to go to Monaco. And then that's where they shot the movie. So all him and his friends.
I really want to take what's her face to Hawaii. So I'm just gonna film
Hawaii.
51st Dates. Yeah.
I was wondering why like all his friends' movies now take place in really clear blue water islands.
Because he goes, where do I want a vacation next?
Like David Spade's like Wrong Missy, which I thought was a heinous
Can
movie.
we get sandals?
They're like in Jamaica.
Couples retreat, yeah.
I'm curious what you guys think about this. Do you ever think, because he was like briefly in the gallery, so George Lucas has his little Starbucks cup, and they got to make a new Funko George Lucas with a Starbucks cup at this point. But and he said something about like, this is what I was envisioning all those years ago, whatever. Do you ever think he sees, when he's on that set and he sees Filoni and Favreau working in the volume, and like regret that he sold it, and like thinks about what he could have done without having to do so much? Like, do you ever think there's that regret in him a little bit? I don't want to like recreate and Back to the Future this thing and what would have Star Wars have been if he didn't, I don't want to go down that road. But do you ever think there's that little bit of regret in George for selling Star Wars?
Yeah, I think there definitely was. I think there was probably sort of buyer's regret within weeks of selling Star Wars. And I think it's completely understandable. I mean, he was always, it kind of happened by accident. And I always got the impression that kind of in a weird way, Indy was almost closer to his heart than Star Wars. In many ways, because it was just an easier story to get a handle on, where Star Wars just became its own thing so quickly. He created, after the Beatles, it was the next Beatlemania, wasn't it? Really, was Star Wars, to that degree, and I don't think he ever expected it. And he always said, since the first time I ever remember seeing him as a little kid, he always said he wanted to make I just want to make my little films, And it was the thing he said when he sold the company, I'm going to go away and make little films that no one's ever going to see,
Yeah.
And he's probably made a dozen of them and we've never seen them, But I think it's completely understandable that you create something to the state and to the level of Star Wars. Good grief. I mean, look at all of us, talking at, for me at, silly o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't get up for anything else like this, and happily do it. I'll talk to you guys any time of the day, of course, but it's
likewise.
Thank you. But it's Star Wars, and it's had such an effect, and we travel halfway around the world to get a celebration, and yada yada yada, all that. Silent Y, all those things that that you would go and see and do because it's Star Wars, and George made that, and the amount of the millions who would just love to meet the guy and shake his hand just once. He could stand there like the most made man in Hollywood and just thank you.
Oh yeah.
So to walk away from that and do what he did must have been an absolute mind blower. But then, like you say, all of a sudden somebody else is steering Star Wars and other people are writing Star Wars, and your opinion, which before was completely this is the way, there you go, bad pun, it's kind of not. It's other people are now steering that ship. Yeah, you're right. I got the sense on Mandalorian almost more than anything else, he must have looked at that and thought, this is exactly what I was kind of thinking. And I think George is the kind of guy where if you wrote down the 10 things that stagecraft was and compared it to the 10 things that he wanted to do, you'd probably see that 8 out of the 10 are basically the same thing. But my read of George is that because the 2 things are different, then it's all different. So he wouldn't claim that this was his vision or anything because it's not exactly the same. You know what I mean? But I think he's kind of magnanimous enough to realise that, and tech's moved on, but he's a tech guy, isn't he? Good grief, Lucas.
Right.
All the 80s was all about the tech and building.
And he was only 68 when he sold it.
Yeah, exactly. Spielberg's still doing stuff, and there's plenty of people in there. Look at how old's John Williams? I mean, didn't he score Moses coming down from the mountain actually in real time there? Right. But
Marshall's still involved with Jurassic, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just as a brief aside, you mentioned I saw the 8 episodes of Camp Cretaceous today, and when it's on Netflix next month, watch it. It's really, really good. Right. But I do. It's me rabbiting again because I do that. But yes, I do think there was probably a regret, and I think Mandalorian was the moment more than any where he probably looked and thought, this would have been absolutely perfect. This would have been, Clone Wars would have finished all those years ago. Would have had another series. Might not have been Rebels, but we would have had another series. Might have had Resistance. Would have had another. Other stuff would have filled the gap. Because I don't think Lucasfilm with George at the helm was ever going to do loads and loads and loads of stuff. It would have been much more defined and a different way of doing it. But Rick McCullum, I interviewed him years and years and years ago, 2007 or something like that, and he was sort of saying how George, it was all digital cinema and how we're going to get stuff out to people and what's the avenue, and we'd love to do this, the old Underworld thing. We'd love to do this Star Wars TV series, but each episode is going to cost $20 million, and no network's going to pay for that. This is pre-streaming. They didn't know that was coming. All of a sudden, you put things like Netflix and Amazon and all these things, and now Disney Plus on the table. Yeah. It's a new environment. I think George would have absolutely thrived, and it would have given him a shot of energy again. So yeah. What was the question? Well,
I was gonna say, because in terms of I guess passing the torch, it almost feels like Favreau from maybe not so much a story writer's perspective, although he did create The Mandalorian, but even the tech stuff, it's almost like he's like the new George Lucas, and everyone's looking to him for the answers right now.
Yeah.
Do you guys think? I know we talked about this, James and Lacey, on the Mando fan show a lot about how George Lucas kind of looked grumpy on the set when he's visiting. He doesn't look like a happy guy anymore. But we've speculated on Favreau maybe being a big player. I know, Lacey, you've talked about that a lot too, right?
What do you mean, big player?
Like Favreau in the future for Lucasfilm being a potential player in the game for the future of the franchise.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there that Favreau can do with Star Wars if he's given the role of someone that's leading the ship. I mean, look what he's done for Star Wars currently. He's created an entire new way to do Star Wars content that not only changes that just for the Star Wars universe, but also potentially future TV and movies for everyone, for the entire industry. I mean, I see stuff online all the time where people are already replicating that technology in other places because all the technology within the volume isn't proprietary. They can take those pieces anywhere and build it from anything because he didn't use anything that's IP. It's all stuff that already exists.
Oh, really? So none of it can be like, I own that and you have to rent that technology from me?
Nothing. It already exists.
Yeah. Even in the gallery, he's like, so it's a TV set. He's showing the Lion King behind the scenes. He's like, it's a TV set, basically. Yeah.
It's stuff that Jon Favreau had been waiting, similar to George, for it to be created and get to the point that it is now. Yeah. But it's all things that have already existed. Jon Favreau has just figured out how to make them work with the right team. Jon
Oh, right.
Favreau, more than anything else, is the creative guy and the team builder guy. He's the guy that has the ideas and knows what he wants to do and has the vision. But more than anything else, he's the person that will find that person to help him do that thing. And I think he does it better than anybody almost in Hollywood, where he finds
it's
that
hard to argue against
perfect
that.
team of, hey, I want to build this digital set. Let me go to ILM. I'm going to go to this person. I want this evil villain. I'm going to get Giancarlo Esposito because I know he's the best.
Yeah.
I want to
that's
make a really good grilled cheese.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing.
His
Favreau
chef
has-
show too. He goes to the best chefs. Like he goes to Wolfgang Puck to make an omelet. Like who?
doesn't-
What?
He doesn't swing and miss so far, right? Like,
Right.
has Favreau had a misfire yet that I can think of?
I mean, some might say Iron Man 2.
Like
yeah,
maybe-
Iron Man 2 was kind of.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
quite
But
like Iron Man 2.
do you guys? So, Mark, you know, we've talked about the potential of, and I did too. I'm a Mickey Rourke guy, but I don't know. Like, where are you with Favreau? Like, do you think? Could you see him sticking around? Could you see him like being enticed to, you know, because I know he likes to stay in California from what I understand. So I don't know if he'd want to be a guy going over to England and Pinewood all the time and doing the Kathleen Kennedy thing. Right. Well, do you think he could stick around beyond the Mandalorian in Star Wars?
Potentially. I mean, I suppose you say about traveling and not wanting to be outside of California. I mean, JJ never wants to leave, does he? And George wouldn't have gone on much on in the set of Empire if things hadn't gone awry with the finances. So, you know,
that's fair.
You can
yeah.
kind of direct from a distance, and you know, George was looking after the ILM stuff. The way Lacey explained Favreau to me just feels kind of like very much like the way George was. You know, get the right people in. There's a vision and a through line.
Like I don't have to be the best, but I'll get the best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it. And picking a good team, it's like any coach, it's sports, isn't it? You know, picking the right people is so essential, and you don't need a team of 11 superstars to make a great team. You know, you've got to, you know, you need your heroes and you need the people that make everything happen. And I think George was good at pulling that together. And it seems
he
like
did
fabulous.
not direct 2 of the 3 original trilogy, you know?
Exactly. That's a really good point. Exactly that. You know, you put the right people in the right places. And so Favreau, I think Mandalorian, it's his baby. And I think it's probably going to run 3, 4, 5 seasons comfortably, you know, without batting an eyelid. And you kind of think, well, if this does the numbers for season 2 that people kind of expect it will, I mean, Disney Plus was built on The Mandalorian. You could confidently say that it was the big hitter that brought people in originally. If season 2 does well, and
Lady and the Tramp, though.
no, that's a good point. Didn't Favreau play the lady? Am I right in saying?
Yeah.
Or was he the meatball? I can't remember. But you know, you know, he's probably got carte blanche to pitch other ideas. But I think broader than just being involved with Star Wars and Lucasfilm, because you know he did all that stuff for Marvel, and then he goes and does Jungle Book and Lion King for Disney, you know, which are both pretty much the 2 biggest live action things they've done, give or take. You know, Beauty and the Beast,
right.
But you know, monster
I would say
hits.
that they based their live action stuff like off of that, of how well that stuff did.
Yeah, you know, and he's like you say, he's swung and he's not missed yet. You know, there's like I say, we all joke about Iron Man 2, but it made great money. It made nearly as much as the first one, so it was a massive hit, and you know, and all the stuff that spun off the back of that,
and took a big risk on Robert Downey Jr. and it hit
huge. And he directed Elf, didn't he? So that puts him in everyone's good books.
He did. Oh, that's such a good movie.
I think he's got the keys to the kingdom, but not just the Star Wars kingdom. I think the Disney kingdom. I think, and it's boring to say it, but I think it's probably true. In the Star Wars sphere, as long as you keep Filoni around, who seems to have a handle on most elements of, especially storyline, to make it all
lore
together. Yeah. And that's so important within the sphere of Star Wars, you know, storytelling and fandom and everything else. It's way bigger of a deal than it is in any other fandom. You know, DC can have 6 Batmen turn up in one film. That's great because that works for DC, but it wouldn't work for Star Wars.
Right.
You know, it's important. So yeah.
I bet that was Favreau's kind of biggest challenge heading into a Star Wars project is, how do I get people like Dave Filoni to be on my side? Like, he's such a lovable guy, but I could be, from my own perspective, like nervous that I'm like, all right, I got to work with this guy. He knows everything. Like, I want him to be on my side. And luckily it worked out and they seemed to get along really, really well. But I can only imagine if it didn't go that way, how bad it could have been.
But he doesn't seem intimidated by the knowledge in that sense.
No.
Disney Gallery, I think, showed that. When he was
like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. But he's at the table. He's the head of the table.
Yeah.
He's got all those ILM guys, Hal and all those guys, and Kathleen Kennedy.
He's Tony Soprano.
Totally. He's leading that. I mean, I don't know if was it Dinner for Five that he did a few years ago? The chat show. He led every table, and you could have had any megastar on that table. And it always filtered through to Favreau steering it. And you think that's a microcosm view of probably how he runs a show. So everything filters through him.
That's a great point.
And there's confidence.
If I ever interview... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say there's just this confidence from the people in that team, whether they're on the table, wherever, that he's the guy that's going to steer everybody in the right direction.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of like how he steers everything and knows everyone, I bet if I was to ever interview Favreau, I'd be like, what's the weirdest phone number in your phone? Like, whose number is the weirdest number that you have in your phone right now? Because I can only imagine what his phone book looks like. He's just scrolling through all these like crazy people.
Yeah.
He probably still has Nikki's phone number from Swingers, who never called him back.
Favreau's funny because he's like, his first meeting with Dave Filoni was like, hey, Star Wars special, the Christmas special. That's a canon, right?
You mean George?
Dave Filoni? No, John Favreau meeting Dave Filoni.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, the holiday special. That's all canon, right? And he's like, no, it's not. And he's like, yeah, it's canon. Like that's Jon Favreau just being like, yeah, it's canon to me, and so therefore it's canon.
Yeah. I think the relationship with Filoni, and recently he had said something about how Kathleen Kennedy deserves a lot of credit for letting him go visit the sets of episodes 8 and potentially 9, maybe it was 7 and 8, I don't know, but he was definitely on 8 to learn while the job is happening, because he wanted to get more into live action. And I think he takes more from Favreau than Favreau takes from him. Granted, he helps him with the connectivity of the story without a doubt, but in terms of like movie making and stuff like that, like Favreau is the cock of the walk, for lack of a better phrase. Like he's strutting his stuff like Vince McMahon walking into the room, right? So
that walk is ridiculous. If it's the walk you're talking about.
You know what? Yeah, that's the Conor McGregor. Yeah, right. So, but I wanted to ask you, Mark, in terms of, I don't want to say leadership, and I don't want to light a fire here, but there's always this buzz of, and we've talked about what we hear, that Disney's going through shakeups, and a lot of studios are going through shakeups during this COVID stuff, and they're using this as an opportunity, as Lacey said, to jostle things and whatever. Do you think Kathleen Kennedy lasts beyond her current contract, or where do you think she's at?
All due respect, she's in her mid to late 60s now. I don't know her exact age, but
around 68 or so, around where George was when he sold it. And I think, blimey, I mean, to be in charge, I mean, she's been in charge 8 years now. And look at the stint she's done, the shows she's launched, the film she's made, the money she's brought in, and the things that she's overseen. I don't know. I mean, to me, her passion for it doesn't seem to have diminished at all. And it's going back to the Favreau conversation. It's you put the right people in the right positions, and you make hay all day, don't you? My head. I mean, I don't think she gets anywhere near the respect that she should for her career in Hollywood, apart from Star Wars.
She's number 2 money-making producer of all time under Kevin Feige.
Oh, really?
No, behind Feige.
Wow.
Which is interesting because Feige's kind of an anomaly in itself. Yeah. Like when she got into Star Wars, she was number 1.
Okay, there you go.
And Feige just kind of came out of nowhere, obviously, because of the Avengers and stuff.
The most beautiful one-trick pony ever, isn't it? Feige's producing it. Bless him. And he, of course, there's all the rumors of him doing a Star Wars project, isn't there? So, but but I think. Well, I mean, for my part, I think whatever she decides to do is fine by me. Whether she's happy with the stint she's done, if she decides to move on to something else and focuses on Kennedy Marshall and does that, great. If she decides to stay and pick up for longer, great. I don't know what my gut tells me on that one. I think she's probably going to stick around for a bit longer. I don't see her going quite yet. I don't know how much longer is left on her contract.
Next year.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a bit like the Iger situation, isn't it? There was always, like trying to get Disney Plus launched, trying to get the park sorted. It was almost like he kept extending. Let's get to this, and then I'll go. Let's get to this, and then I'll go. And now with COVID, it's like we've kind of lost a year, and I think there might be an element of, well, and I know she's monster busy, but let's get to the next film. She extends
her contract for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Just to
get to 23 and get that next film out, and then she can, she'll be, if she says she's 68, then she'll be in her 70s. And, for anyone, you want to start winding it down a little bit. The pressure at that level and in that position must be incredible. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Anything else you guys want to add to that? Because I have another topic that I'd like to switch to.
No, I mean, we always it always seems to go around whenever we have a guest, we, like to try to get their vibe on it because it's step outside of our bubble. So I'm just curious where Mark was on that. Because I think this might be it for her. But
she could always Parent Trap it and just switch with Connie. And then no.
Where's Connie? Yeah, we haven't seen her since the premiere. We're worried about Connie.
I'm the only one in the fandom that keeps bringing up Connie. I'm going to keep it going.
Well, we found out she had a twin sister. It was like the old WWF when there was the 2 referees that were twins and we didn't know what was going on. I did not know that Kathleen Kennedy had a twin sister. That was the bigger plot twist,
and they look exactly alike too.
Yeah, they're definitely identical.
All of a sudden, I want to do that Reddit joke where it's like, but don't ever forget that in 1993, Mankind threw The Undertaker off the cage. You know what I'm talking about?
Hell in the Cell, yeah.
The Hell in the Cell.
Yeah.
No, the other thing I want to bring up is I gotta think, when they launched the Disney Plus thing, they were like movies, theaters, big screens, right? And then Disney Plus, that's going to be us to do the television shows for animation and live action television shows and stuff. But we're hearing so many rumors about, Enfys Nest show and Crimson Dawn show and Solo and
Mando.
Confirmed ones, even Mando. Yeah, all this other stuff. Just so many different shows. It almost doesn't make any sense to me that hey, they're working on these projects and they have these ideas and they really like the concept of moving forward with these, but they're like, we got a greenlit 4 hours of content on these. Why don't they just greenlit 2 hours of content on one of these and do the Crimson Dawn movie for Disney Plus? Then it's not a whole show. It's not expected for a second season. They just did the show, Disney Plus, the volume. I think so much has changed since they said we're going to make this the television outlet, and the movies are always going to stay special up here. Do you guys really think that fans are going to be like Crimson Dawn show? It's 2 hours and that's a movie, and my Star Wars movies are supposed to be special. You think it would be better if they were just like, how about 4 half-an-hour episodes of Crimson Dawn? And they're like, yay, my movies are still special. I'm like, I don't see the difference here.
I think it's a different type of storytelling, though, between serialized television and a feature. Because you have to get to certain points quicker in features than you can in TV. That's how I understand it. But I don't know what you guys think. But.
I just want all the Star Wars content. I don't care if it's a movie, if it's a TV show, music video. I don't know.
I'm just
Mark, you think they could do Star Wars movies on Disney Plus? Yeah. I guess is what James is getting at.
Yeah. Again, it came up on Making Tracks, talking about reduced budgets and what the scope for doing these things is. And just say, I can't believe we actually got an Earl Hebner reference into a podcast like this. That's fantastic.
All right.
I do. I think stop. I mean, oh blimey, where do I start with this one? Without talking about things for about 2 hours. Star Wars. When Star Wars started out, big screen, major motion picture event, changed the course of Hollywood, changed everything, changed it was in the zeitgeist, it changed pop culture, it just blew up like crazy. But if Star Wars hadn't have blown up like crazy, then the sequel to Star Wars might not have been The Empire Strikes Back. It could have been a TV movie version of Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Life could have been very, very different, but it still had the holiday special though, so things aren't all bad. So, life could have been completely different.
Two holiday special references.
Oh, you can't have enough, can you? And so, we work our way through the history of Star Wars, and, every 3 years, Circus comes to town, major movie, 16-year gap between Jedi and Phantom Menace, and it's the same pattern again. But now we're in an era where we're 40 years plus into Star Wars, and not only fandom has changed, not only has the genre changed completely. When Star Wars came out, there was nothing to compare. Star Wars brought back Star Trek and set off all those, Black Hole, Galactica, all the stuff that spun off from Star Wars that you can sort of trace the lineage. Now Star Wars is one of many franchises, and it's not the only party in town, and it's not necessarily the biggest anymore in terms of pure box office like it always seemed to be. Different marketplace, and now we've talked about it tonight. You've got Stagecraft, you've got Disney Plus, you've got all the other avenues of Star Wars where storytelling can happen. And if you did a Star Wars TV movie, let's say it's a Crimson Dawn thing, it's not like comparing Crimson Dawn to Caravan of Courage. It's a different baby,
Right.
But it's essentially a TV of the week. It is Lady and the Tramp that we talked about earlier. There's all the talk at the moment. There was a poll online of people saying, Black Widow. Where do you want to see Black Widow? It was like 13% were like, we don't mind if it's TV or cinema. And
I saw that.
and another percentage was like, oh, it's got to be the cinema. But 55% were like, we don't care, we just want to see it. Stick it on Disney Plus. Me, I want to see it at the cinema. I've got a friend of mine worked on it. I've heard great things about it. To me, it's a big screen movie. It would be a shame if it never came out on the big screen. But given the way of the world at the moment, outside of COVID, just the changing face of the delivery methods for films. Get it out there. If they can make their money back and make a penny and everyone's happy and, it all works, then do it. So I think Star Wars, big tentpole, major sort of saga level, if you want to put it in that way, Star Wars, that's one thing. And to me, that kind of feels clear what that is. You know what I mean? But then you could do a Star Wars TV movie that went directly to Disney Plus that did tell a different kind of story and would still look incredible and have great actors, and it could work.
I think to summarize kind of what I think you're saying is, like, back in the day, the theater used to be like the big thing. Like, that was the biggest you could be. That was the event, the movie that everybody went to see. And nowadays, like, Stranger Things season 2, is the event, and like people are watching the finale of Game of Thrones and stuff, and it's like, or Walking Dead or whatever, like certain specific properties within film and storytelling in live action format have changed, where I don't think it's any like diminishing to Star Wars to come in and be like, hey, when we put out our television show, we're the number one show. Yeah. We're the biggest show there is. The biggest television property there is when it drops, every time it drops. You know what I mean? Just the same way as like back in the day, it used to be every time a new Star Wars movie came out, it was number one, always. It just blew everything else out of the water. I think, just as long as we adapt to the right mediums, I don't think we have to just keep the Star Wars films special, especially when it comes down to where we started this conversation, the budget aspect. Like, they'll greenlit 4 hours of content for a season of a television show, but they won't greenlit 2 hours of content to do a side story, a one-off side story.
I agree. I think Mark nailed it in terms of, again, that compromise, which you do so well, Mark. And I don't know how you do it, but you do it. Whereas you can make the TV movies, but kind of showcase it in a way like, don't worry, like, you're still getting the big one with the popcorn and it's coming. And then you give you the episode 10 and you blast it up on the IMAX, right? Yeah. So let me then segue that before, do you have time for a few questions? I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay. So some people are like, gotta get out. So,
I'll sleep later. I'm driving. I'll sleep then. It's fine.
So, so the next movie is 2023. It's Taika. We all assume it's they're aiming for theatrical release on that. So first question, do you think that is going to be kind of its own thing, or do you think they're going to use Taika to launch some new trilogy or set of films?
we talked about this, and I think it's easy to look at Taika and think, because he's got such a unique sort of worldview, it's him, that he's his own thing. I mean, pretty much my favorite Marvel movie is Ragnarok. I just adore that.
Me
film.
too. I love it.
Yeah,
so good.
Just everything is pitch perfect, and I think that angle on Star Wars could be really prosperous. It could really be something special. Sort of dash of Hitchhikers, and just twisting a few little elements.
Yeah.
Imagine if he got Solo years ago. What we would have gotten.
It would have been.
That could have been crazy.
Really interesting.
I still want his movie to be Solo too.
But Solo TW.
Imagine this whole time it is. We just don't know it the whole time.
Well, I think part of me thinks it'll be a standalone. It'll be its own thing. But he seems to be enjoying being part of it. Being in the Mandalorian, directing the episodes, and I think he likes being around it. And it feels now, almost going back to the Favreau conversation, is that Star Wars is a broad enough palette now that you could dip in and go away, come back, dip in, go away, come back.
Yeah.
And also because you think of Taika and you think of the humour and the witticism and the slightly off-kilter, weird angle that he could bring to something. Again, Ragnarok. It did that Guardians of the Galaxy thing, and it's the freshest view on space I can ever remember seeing since Star Wars was Guardians. I wanted to travel around in that galaxy. It was just visually beautiful, and Ragnarok had that touch about it as well. I think you bring a bit of that. So you kind of had the Rings of Kafrene in Rogue One kind of has that sort of vibe about it. Just things that are a little bit more like, I didn't expect to see that. I think Taika could bring you something like that, but also I might be underselling the guy. He could have the most serious, like on point, mind-blowing Star Wars story in him and tell it in a real serious, full-on, like, holy bleep way. I did not see that coming. So to talk about his humor and his comedy and his just view on things that you kind of expect Taika to do, he might have a Citizen Kane in him. He might have something that's just insanely like, where did this come from? This is everything I didn't know I was missing from Star Wars. So I'm ready to be blown away.
Padawan Kane.
Yeah.
So I was just about to look up his quote that I absolutely loved from the gallery, where he said something like, it made me realize he gets Star Wars. And
you gotta take it seriously when it doesn't take itself seriously. He's or something like
he
that.
said it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it knows its importance or something like that.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like kind of like, because sometimes, like you said at the very beginning of this podcast, Mark, when it was talking about the divisiveness of the fans and whatever, I think fans have taken Star Wars and painted this new picture that it has to be so serious.
Yeah, I agree.
And sometimes you need to flip it up on its head,
gritty,
and be reminded that IG-88 isn't necessarily this awesome, badass bounty hunter because he is. It's because they had to staple his feet to the floor, and that's why he was the way he was. And I feel like Taika gets that, and that's what really excites me. And now you're adding into the his visual element and all the things he's capable of doing, and you got the New Zealand effect coming in. You got the Lord of the Rings and the visual. I'm so excited about it. The only thing that upsets me is that they just pushed it back another year. But I guess the last question I have before we get to listener questions is, do you think Daisy, Boyega, and Isaac will come back? Any of them? And when do you think? Because I think Daisy's the most likely. When do you think they would bring her back? If you think they will.
Well, we know Oscar's coming back when he needs a new house, so that's an easy answer.
Can you? What a line to give in the middle of a pandemic.
I don't know. I mean, I think episode 10. I mean, George did mention 1 to 12, so they're not. They can spin that one easily if they want to. I think. I mean, personally, I think that's at least a decade away if they do it at all with those characters. If they don't just decide to step it on 100 years or whatever, they can go however far they want there. And
True.
I don't know. I think as actors, they all know. Not Oscar. It was kind of different for him. I mean, he came into Force Awakens and originally Poe wasn't going to get out of Force Awakens. He died, didn't he, in the TIE fighter crash? So, and it was just because he was so cool in it and he enjoyed it that JJ sort of expanded it. So that kind of makes him slightly different. And he was already a name You know, he'd already done substantial work before, and he's done substantial work after. He's got Dune coming out, which everyone's, you know, going loopy about, or Dunk, as I call it, if you look at the logo.
It does kind of look like Dunk.
But John and Daisy, that film made them. So I think John and Daisy need to go off and do other things and be busy elsewhere. And then if it feels right, you know, if they're not doing, you know, the local convention at my nearby, you know, village hall in 5 years' time, which I don't think they will be, but, you know, then perhaps. And I think you know, I wouldn't expect to see either of them or any of them at the next 2 or 3 celebrations. I would imagine they would probably want to put it a bit of distance and focus on their careers, and that's completely understandable. But I think in time, but I do think, you know, I mean, John and Daisy, both 28, 29? I think they'll probably be in the 40s.
If that.
Yeah, they'll probably be in the 40s before you see them again. But I think that's fine, because now Star Wars, you know, talking about Taika, you know, if he takes us off in a new direction, if High Republic becomes more than they probably originally envisioned it to be, that's a new era, you know. There's places they can take it. And I'll just make one little point, just one quick thing, stepping back to Solo, that, excuse me, I did the maths a while ago, and Billy Dee, Harrison and Carrie, the age difference between the 3 of them is exactly the same as the age difference between Millie Bobby Brown, Alden Ehrenreich and Donald Glover. You look at the dates of birth, it's exactly the same distance.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm just putting that out there. If
boy.
because I think it's about Indiana Jones. You know, they you know, apparently we're getting a new Indy in a couple of years, and Harrison's going to be in it, and you know how they're going to do that, I don't know. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't cast a younger actor to play Indy. And you know, there's, what was it? Temple of Doom is set in 1935, Raiders in 36, Last Crusade in 39, and then there's that big gap, the war years before Crystal Skull. I don't see any reason why you couldn't make a new Indiana Jones film set between Raiders and Last Crusade and just have a different actor in that role. And it's all part of the same timeline. We're not stupid. We know it's not Harrison Ford, but you know what I mean? Right. And they could do the same with Star Wars. They could tell a Star Wars original trilogy story set between Star Wars and Empire with different actors if they want to do it. The options are limitless. And it goes right back to what we've been saying about stagecraft makes it affordable. Visual effects technology, good grief, look at the dirt fakes they're doing now. I know that's a divisive subject.
Oh, yeah.
It's getting better every time you see it. It's like, that's really, and it's an app now, good grief. You can't believe anything. I mean, is that really you on my screen, John? Or is that somebody else?
I mean, that's scary, man.
Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. So
I left the podcast a half hour ago. Someone else is here now talking
to you.
Good.
Imagine they don't make Solo 2 happen, but they bring Alden in to play Harrison Ford in the new Indy.
It's the dream, isn't it?
Kind of. Solo 2.
He wears the cowboy hat in Hail Caesar. So, all right. So we do have some questions from our viewers to fire at you here. So here we go. Hope you're ready.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
This first one's from Neil at Lowry Neil. What is going on? Neil's such a good guy. What's up, Neil? He's from your neck of the woods, actually, so he's probably sleeping right now. Yeah. Do you want Star Wars filmmakers to... You kind of touched on this before. Do you want Star Wars filmmakers to film at real locations for movies, or does the Mandalorian technology make it cheaper to not do it? So I guess, do you want more movies to still go on locations or not?
Yeah, there's definitely there will definitely be the occasion and the instance to do stuff on location, and it might be. I mean, we said this on Making Tracks. You know, the assumption is that stagecraft it's got to be cheaper than going on location, hasn't it? It's got to be. It's just got to be. It's not necessarily the case. We don't know the costings. We don't know how much these things cost. Because, you know, stagecraft is one thing, and setting it up, and stage time, studio time is monster expensive. So at this point in time, it's an assumption. It's not necessarily a specific fact. But I think in time, you know, a lot of shows, and it goes back to, you know, something that you were saying earlier. I think James said, you know, big movies will be on the big screen and smaller films will be on your streamers. And, you know, if you're going to make a Jane Austen period piece, and you can go and film it at an old country house in the UK and get your crew out there and film it, it's probably still cheaper than shipping them all to the States and filming it on a volume or whatever. You know, it would suit.
That's a good point.
Things. Yeah, you know, it would suit certain scenarios.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll suit certain things. But I think really, as we move forward, for the most part, it's what George said, wasn't it? Years and years ago, how, Phantom Menace always got painted. That's a weird choice of word, but almost got painted as an animated film because, there was so much going on visually with what was happening and so many characters that weren't actually tangibly there in the room. And it feels like now Star Wars, this was a thought I had a long time ago, is that I can see a scenario where you film a Star Wars project and you've got your visuals going on, all your CG and all your CG characters. And then you get 3 or 4 years down the line, and we've got a good eye. I was watching Jurassic World the other day, and I'm watching the raptors in Jurassic World on my nice digital television, and it's just starting to show its age a little bit, which seems ridiculous, even though it still looks incredible.
I agree with you.
But I think you'll get to a scenario where if it's on Disney Plus and Lucasfilm have complete control of their own property on Disney Plus, and they want to replace that horrible Yoda puppet in Phantom Menace with a CG Yoda, for example, that you're watching Disney Plus, and all of a sudden you're watching a version of whatever, and they quietly go away and re-render it, and they make the graphics a little bit better, and we've got 7K HD now or whatever. You can see inside the pores on their skin, and they can just make it that much better, and they re-render it and they put it out on Disney Plus. They don't even tell you, and you're looking, going, God, I don't remember Watto looking that good, and they just keep doing it.
This wine is really working tonight.
Off or whatever.
It's funny. It's starting to look like the 30 Rock Seinfeld vision. Like Jerry Seinfeld just shows up in all the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
I gotta watch this show.
Yeah.
John, you're missing out. It's so good.
Yeah.
I gotta add it to my list after I finish Lost, which you guys are saying I shouldn't. But all right, Mark, are you a collector? Do you collect figures, or you have that room I know with all the crazy stuff? So I'm gonna assume the answer is yes.
Yeah, I get bits of everything.
All right, so Andrew Staley at Deuce _ Staley. What's up, Andrew? He wants to know, why do you think that the Clone Wars merch has been pushed out more instead of sequel trilogy stuff? Both have reached a sort of end, but seems like the sequel trilogy stuff has been pushed aside in terms of merch. Have you felt that? Have you heard that from people too?
A little bit, and I think mainly with anything like this, it all comes down to sales. These companies, tooling is expensive, production's expensive. A lot of what gets released, it has to be said, isn't dictated by Hasbro or Gentle Giant or anything. It all comes from Disney, so it's their decision 9 times out of 10. Apart from your occasional fan polls and such. But it really is down to what they think will sell. It's like why with Hasbro figures you get so many armored characters. They've traditionally always sold well, so they'll that's why your case mixes generally have lots of stormtroopers in them because people want to army build. It's that kind of logic. So I think with toys as well, if they think they can sell a Captain Rex and it's a guaranteed seller, and most people will go, oh yeah, we all want Captain Rex. It's what a cool character. There's probably more confidence in selling a Captain Rex figure than trying to make a cool animatronic Babu Frick, which I personally really want because I thought Babu was a phenomenal character. But I want to see more of him.
Or a third Rey, a third Finn. Yeah. Like I'll take a Captain Rex character because we haven't had one yet.
Yeah. And I think, but it's all dictated by. And obviously they have their little fan councils. All of these companies do. Hasbro do. Sideshow do. They all do. They get the down low on what fans are thinking and what they think people want to see.
They look at eBay too. What sells the most? What moves around the most?
Yeah.
Well, like Lacey, you've been talking about you want that yellow or gold Rey lightsaber, and everyone's dying to know where that thing is.
Where is it?
Or Leia's lightsaber too. So people are
Ben
still
Solo
wondering.
merch either.
Yeah, which is surprising because that's a very popular character.
Yes, it is.
But it just feels already like episode 9. We said this on the show. It feels like episode 9 is like way back in the rearview mirror now.
Doesn't it?
It's nuts, right? And it's only been 6 months. I don't
know if it's because of the year has been so slow because of the pandemic. Maybe it feels that way, or people just had the fatigue. I don't know, but that's a good
I just
point.
feel like I was waiting for a lot of stuff to come out after the movie because they hold on to things until the movie comes out, and then nothing came out. And I was like, okay, but what about her lightsaber? What about all these things that happened?
Instead,
and they were like, no, here's another Sith trooper.
There you go.
And I was like, but I don't want another Sith trooper. They're like, so you want another
billion
Baby
of
Yoda.
these? Lacey will buy 5,000 of those instead. And there
I feel attacked.
I think by the end of 2020, there'll be more accumulated Baby Yoda merchandise than all other Star Wars merch put together.
It's true.
Honestly, probably. All right, let's do one more here. Peter McCluskey at Red P Mac wants to know, cast details were revealed for all the movies and for Mandalorian Season 1 before they came out. We knew Ming-Na Wen, Giancarlo Esposito, Gina Carano, etc. were all in it. Why does it seem that people are so concerned that cast details for Season 2 had been coming out before the series airs? I don't necessarily know if I agree with that angle. I think people are more concerned when character stuff are revealed. What's your take on this? Do you find, Mark, that people are upset when they hear actors are revealed before seasons air?
It depends on the show. I mean, I suppose with Mando, they wanted to get as much good press ahead of the Disney Plus launch because there was so much riding on it. So any way they could claw some sort of column inches, if you like, then they would do it. And it is all about hashtags now, isn't it? So I think season 2, like we've talked about earlier, the expectation is so different. It was there, it's now here. It won't get there because nothing will. And also, for Lucasfilm PR specifically, this year must have just been a torpedo for them because they've come out the back of, like I say, Ep 9, Rise of Skywalker. It's come out on Blu-ray and DVD. It's on Disney Plus. They should be sort of basking in the nice afterglow of that. And fandom did what fandom did. So that's fandom. There you go. And then this year we should, like you said earlier, we should be at Celebration. We should all be having a beer,
drinking beers,
meeting up, and we've all lost that. And so, but Lucasfilm have as well. So Whole Republic should have been coming out a couple of days before Celebration, and then you can only imagine what would have been announced there. But instead,
I wonder if Lucasfilm's kind of happy it got canceled. I wonder if they're kind of like, you know what? I'll take the 2 years.
I don't think it's going to hurt them. I really don't think it's going
right?
to hurt.
Imagine being in that team and you're like, seems like the right move for so many reasons outside of just the current pandemic.
You need, I think with Star Wars, again, and I keep mentioning making tracks, sorry, but we'd say it all the time. I think Star Wars needs the anticipation. That's such a key word in association with Star Wars. Yeah. It is that circus is coming to town. It's a nuke on the zeitgeist. It's everything stops for Star Wars. Films literally move out of its way. It's the Indominus Rex of movies, isn't it? It's one of those things. And if Star Wars is too regular, people become too accustomed to it, and it's just another franchise. Oh, another Star Wars. Oh, there's a new Star Wars film out this month. Yeah, didn't that just come out at Christmas? The one where Luke Skywalker died. No, this is about Han Solo. But didn't he die in the previous film? No, it's about a young Han Solo. How are they going to do that? Harrison Ford's a million years old. No, and it's that.
It's brutal.
And Bob Iger admitted, didn't he? It was a mistake releasing it when they did. But we all lost out in that sense. But Star Wars needs to be the conversation dominator. That's what it should be. So, like Lacey says, 2 years of there being no Star Wars on the big screen, or 3 years, I don't see that as a bad thing at all. Focus on television. It's a different animal.
I'm just saying about Celebration itself, just being like, you know what? We all need a break.
Oh, blimey, yeah. My wallet needs a break.
All right. So, I guess we'll do one quick last one. Ion Cannon asks if you had the unlimited budget from Disney, Mark, to make a bonus features feature, for lack of a better term. What would you produce? Would it be a documentary, a collection of deleted material, something completely different? What would you put out in Star Wars if you had an unlimited budget, not a canon story, but another production?
I loved what they did with Disney Gallery. I really thought that was brilliant because we're moving away from physical media now. We buying Blu-rays, even though I'm always going to want to physically own things, but buying Blu-rays, buying DVDs, all that stuff is probably going the way of the dodo, sadly. So to me, Disney Gallery felt like the Blu-ray extras, made more substantial as a series, and I really kind of dig that. So I think we are quite a distance away from the next film, as we just said. So, and I love the documentary that Debs Patterson did for Rise of Skywalker. I thought it was great. Really going back into the archive, stuff we'd never seen before. Really, really enjoyed that. But I still, again, the old fart in me just loves that, Star Wars Jedi, making of a saga, classic creatures, that sort of stuff. I just love being in the workshop and sort of watching them get on with it. And I know that there must be so much footage of, Brian Herring and Dave Chapman sort of preparing BB-8 and practicing with it, and Lee Towersey building R2s and all that sort of stuff. There's just got to be oodles of footage. I would love to see something like that. And again, I spoke to Rinsler recently, J.W. Rinsler recently, those books he did on making a Star Wars Empire.
Yeah, we had him on a couple months ago.
Yeah, amazing books. And he did a making of Revenge of the Sith, and he said he'd love to go back and sort of explore that and expand that into a fuller version. He wrote the Force Awakens book, which of course never came out, So there's all this in-depth stuff that's out there that exists. We know it exists in a hard drive somewhere. That fans like us would just drool over and then wipe the page and laminate it. But,
I wish they released the Force Awakens one.
Sorry?
I wish they would release the Force Awakens one.
They really should. It sounded, we had a little bit of a chat about it, and it sounded like so interesting. From it wasn't just about the making of it, it was like from the Disney takeover sort of right through. And and it was to the level of what those previous 3 books were. It just sounded fascinating, and it's out there. It exists. We know it exists, and it probably
it's on someone's hard drive.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, really.
Good.
We got to hack into J.W. Rinsler's computer.
I honestly would make a documentary of all the stuff that didn't work out. Like all the projects of like brainstorming and developments that then didn't happen. Like that to me is always super interesting, and like why.
Lacey's show would light the fandom on fire.
Yeah, right. That would never air. They'd make it.
I just feel like it would be super cool to see like how the process works and like why are things no and why some things are yes. And I think that kind of transparency, while yes, it would cause a lot of, I think, turmoil on Twitter, it would overall give people a view of this is how things work.
Yeah.
It's not this other picture that you have in your head.
Yeah. Inside the creative board meetings with Kathleen Kennedy and the creatives.
Yeah,
like,
just a little transparency.
It's a business ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just keeping up with the Kennedys. It's just...
Hey, that's an idea. There you go. All right. So, Mark, before we, we're towards the end of the show here. So before we get to our little outros and stuff like that, we want to obviously thank you for coming on and hanging out with us. This has been awesome. Where can people nag you as we have nagged you for the last hour plus online and that sort of thing?
I can be nagged at prefect_timing on Twitter. You can come to my house if you want, but I might not answer the door. But generally, anywhere that's got Fantha tracks in it is probably the best place to find me. So at Fantha tracks on all the socials. Or news@fanthatracks.com if you want to drop us an email, or listen to Making Tracks on Fantha Tracks Radio Network, which is always very welcome if you want to listen. And then, of course, Insider kicks off again in September, so there's plenty of stuff you can see of mine in Insider. And occasionally on StarWars.com. I'd love to do more for StarWars.com. It's always fun. And also I write for Starburst magazine, which is the world's longest running sci-fi and genre magazine. So that's it's always good fun. So there's usually stuff in there. So, yeah.
And one thing that you did on StarWars.com that you like to pop up once in a while is the audience reactions back when Jedi came out and that sort of thing. And I thought it was so important when you created that, and also when you resurfaced that when current Star Wars projects come out, to let people know that these things weren't always the gold standard then either.
Yeah, it was a critical opinion. It was a nice little series. I think. It's easy to. I mean, it's like the popular myth that everybody hated Empire when it came out, and they didn't. It was as mixed an opinion for Empire as it was for any other film. I think Pauline Kael called it the most beautiful film of the year, but a lot of other people were just left sterile because it was just an exercise in technical prowess. And you look at Empire now and think, how could anybody think that? It's just a different world. And it did. I think I can't remember which films I did now. I think I did all the prequels and the original trilogy, and I think I did Heirs to the Empire as well, if I remember.
Yeah.
But
I remember one of the reviews you posted about from a critic, or it was an audience leaving the theater or whatever, about Return of the Jedi, saying how it was lazy and like it was a remake of A New Hope or something. Like there were some things, and it sounds familiar to what people said about The Force Awakens, and I'm like, history just repeats itself.
Oh,
totally. Those are both my favorites, so...
Yeah, it's funny. I actually just read recently a whole forum full of posts the day and not Star Wars, in an Apple forum back the day after they announced the iPod. Ooh. And it was just full of people being like, this is the stupidest waste of money. Apple is going downhill. Like, who wants to pay for this stupid media? No one's going to use it.
What's
like,
this Amazon thing?
So funny. Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for listening and watching and being a part of the Resistance. We hope you enjoyed this show. Obviously, you enjoyed Mark. Hopefully, you enjoyed the three of us as well. Make sure you do subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. We have 2 episodes every week, so make sure you subscribe. And in October, we'll bring back the Mando fan show. So make sure you do subscribe to the show. StarWarsNewsNet.com for your Star Wars news from our end of the things. Teespring for all of our shirts, if you want to check out some of our merch. And that is pretty much that. I want to thank our Patreon generals. Patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast if you want to support what we do here. We also give you 9 mini episodes every month and a lot of other stuff. But most importantly, we got to thank our generals over there. So that is Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Jetta Rosewater, Michael Gaines, Bethany, Beer Fett, Russ Harbison, and Kendall Gellner. Thank you so much, generals, for all of your support. We couldn't do it without you. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and StarWarsNewsNet.com. James?
Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks.
Lacey?
Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right,
Not
Mark.
Yeckle.
Not Yeckle, not yet. Make sure you get that handle. You have to get it just in case. Mark, thanks so much, man. I checked back. It was last November when you were on last. It was before episode 9. Wow. So it's been that long. So we got to make it a shorter span of time next time when you come on chat. It's always such a great time. And I know we get to chat with you on Twitter and stuff, but we need to get you back.
You can have the keys to the Resistance garage.
I always like being in the garage. No, thanks for having me back on. I always enjoy it. I dine out on this for weeks. So yes, it's always good fun.
Thank you, man. And thank you to everyone for listening and watching. Mark, you're going to come back sooner than later, and we'll see you guys on Monday with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.